The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Remember always, that all of us, and you, and I especially, are descended from immigrants and revolutionists. I ask you to judge me by the enemies I have made. When you come to the end of your rope, tie a knot and hang on. We cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future. The test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much, it is whether we provide enough for those who have too little. A nation that destroys its soils destroys itself. Forests are the lungs of our land, purifying the air and giving fresh strength to our people. I'm not the smartest fellow in the world, but I can sure pick smart colleagues. The liberty of a democracy is not safe if the people tolerated the growth of private power to a point where it becomes stronger than the democratic state itself. That in its essence is fascism, ownership of government by an individual, by a group, or any controlling private power. Courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the assessment that something else is more important than fear. To reach a port we must set sail. Sail, not tie at anchor. Sail, not drift. Democracy cannot succeed unless those who express their choice are prepared to choose wisely. The real safeguard of democracy, therefore, is education. Books cannot be killed by fire. People die, but books never die. No man and no force can abolish memory. In this war, we know, books are weapons. And it is a part of your dedication always to make them weapons for man's freedom. Books cannot be killed by fire. People die, but books never die. No man and no force can abolish memory. In this war, we know, books are weapons. And it is a part of your dedication always to make them weapons for man's freedom. Happiness is not in the mere possession of money, it lies in the joy of achievement, in the thrill of creative effort. Happiness lies in the joy of achievement and the thrill of creative effort. If you treat people right, they will treat you right, 90% of the time. There are many ways of going forward, but only one way of standing still. A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor. Presidents are selected, not elected. It is common sense to take a method and try it. If it fails, admit it frankly and try another. But above all, try something. Men are not prisoners of fate, but only prisoners of their own minds. Be sincere, be brief, be seated. A conservative is a man with two perfectly good legs who, however, has never learned to walk forward. We have always known that heedless self-interest was bad morals, we now know that it is bad economics. Freedom means the supremacy of human rights everywhere. Our support goes to those who struggle to gain those rights and keep them. Our strength is our unity of purpose. To that high concept there can be no end save victory. Repetition does not transform a lie into a truth. The first truth is that the liberty of a democracy is not safe if the people tolerate the growth of private power to a point where it becomes stronger than their democratic state itself. That, in its essence, is fascism, ownership of government by an individual, by a group, or by any other controlling private power. Among us today a concentration of private power without equal in history is growing. In these days of difficulty, we Americans everywhere must and shall choose the path of social justice, the path of faith, the path of hope, and the path of love toward our fellow man. It isn't sufficient just to want, you've got to ask yourself what you are going to do to get the things you want. Human kindness has never weakened the stamina or softened the fiber of a free people. A nation does not have to be cruel to be tough. The truth is found when men, and women, are free to pursue it. A war of ideas can no more be won without books than a naval war can be won without ships. Books, like ships, have the toughest armor, the longest cruising range, and mount the most powerful guns. Better the occasional faults of a government that lives in a spirit of charity than the consistent omissions of a government frozen in the ice of its own indifference. Competition has been shown to be useful up to a certain point and no further, but cooperation, which is the thing we must strive for today, begins where competition leaves off. True individual freedom cannot exist without economic security and independence. People who are hungry and out of a job are the stuff of which dictatorships are made. War is young men dying and old men talking. Great power involves great responsibility. I think we consider too much the luck of the early bird and not enough the bad luck of the early worm. We cannot always build a future for our youth, but we can always build our youth for the future. In the truest sense, freedom cannot be bestowed, it must be achieved. You are only an extra in everyone else's play. Those who have long enjoyed such privileges as we enjoy forget in time that men have died to win them. A radical is a man with both feet firmly planted in the air. A conservative is a man with two perfectly good legs who, however, has never learned to walk forward. A reactionary is a somnambulist walking backwards. A liberal is a man who uses his legs and his hands at the behest at the command of his head. The real truth of the matter is, as you and I know, that a financial element in the large centers has owned the government of the U.S. since the days of Andrew Jackson. There is nothing so American as our national parks. The scenery and the wildlife are native. The fundamental idea behind the parks is native. It is, in brief, that the country belongs to the people, that it is in process of making for the enrichment of the lives of all of us. The parks stand as the outward symbol of the great human principle. Organized money hates me and I welcome their hatred. Taxes, after all, are dues that we pay for the privileges of membership in an organized society. I have an unshaken conviction that democracy can never be undermined if we maintain our library resources and a national intelligence capable of utilizing them. The only sure bulwark of continuing liberty is a government strong enough to protect the interests of the people, and a people strong enough and well enough informed to maintain its sovereign control over the government. In politics, nothing happens by accident. If it happens, you can bet it was planned that way. There should be no bitterness or hate where the sole thought is the welfare of the United States of America. No man can occupy the office of president without realizing that he is president of all the people. Which quotation do you like the most? Don't forget to subscribe.